Okay, I'll still take it.
What
Kill it. Kill it dead.
what do you think is the best way to get the most out of events like CTN and whatnot?
That's a great question, actually. Not a bad question at all. I generally just try to make friends. Go to like parties if there's parties, or go to like any kind of social if there's socials. So, for instance, there is GDC, right? It's like right around the corner, and me and my friends were all gonna meet up and hang out, and so it's a great time to just hang out, but it's also just a good time to just talk and meet new people. Like I'm going to the art station thing. I'm going to go to a Quixel event. I'm going to go to what else was there? Oh yeah, there's like a level up thingy. It's not the concept art level up. It's something else. But I go and I try to talk and mingle and make friends with peeps. I know, Mike, there's something going on in Seattle, right? I don't know if you had a chance to hang out with Tabiso, but you should. No, what? Why not? You didn't go to school or something? Well, I mean, you don't have to go to like the event. I know it costs money. It's not always easy to go, but like you can just go nearby. Artisticon? The heck's?
Yeah, it's in Philly.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just like talk to people, like go to talks too, like go to panels if there's panels. That's always nice. Get that knowledge, make those friends. Like I ran into I did a talk and I ran into some people who really enjoyed the talk, and they were like, yeah, we're doing we do this like artist like it's like the Black Nerd Con thingy. I forget the exact name, but it's basically like nerds who are black. Like, we would love for you to do a talk there and stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, heck yeah. So if you don't know, man, I'm all about that Wakanda. It's like I went to Wakanda Con, so I'm all about it. My friend Kaylin was talking to me about like, why don't we go to this event at GDC? It's like blacks in the games industry, right? Because there's not that many of us, you know. And so he was like, we should go hang out and make some friends there and talk to people, like get to know. And I was just thinking, I'm gonna be like super racist as soon as I walk in. Just be like, where's the fried chicken? This ain't an official flag for what you got for gaming. If you don't have fried chicken and watermelon, I'm out of here, dude. But no, that'll be a lot of fun just to go make friends, mingle, talk to people. But you know what I mean? Like just be lighthearted, talk to people, be friendly. Like I'm almost certain that even if I made that joke, people would laugh, like crack up. Knowing that it's kind of like I'm addressing the tone of the room, like um, we're all like very rare within the industry. It's not a lot, but it's I don't think it's a consequence of anything other than just for whatever reason there's just not a lot of interest in these communities. I mean, even me like knowing about this stuff was like I had no clue. I knew about video games, you know what I mean? And I knew that like there's like an industry there, but I didn't know like what goes on in the industry. And now I know all about it. You know what I mean? Like I was doing some help for like lower income kids, and that's the same problem. Like they just don't know that these things exist. You know what I mean? And so it's nice to just help out and talk about it more. Like when I did my workshop at the con, there was a few people who came up and they're just like, just me talking about it really inspired them. You know what I mean? And so it's always nice to go because you might run into people that will inspire you in a different way than I may have, right? Or teach you things that I couldn't teach you because I don't walk in their shoes, you know? Like there was these uh, these artists who came up to me and they're talking to me and they're just like they were focused on the idea of like their identity. They're like they're sisters and they're like we're black, we're women, we're very tall. It's like it's kind of it's like kind of weird. Like we don't know anybody, like we don't know who to look up to. We take a lot of pride in who we are. And I say, that's great, that's a good point. And it's like, well, maybe you guys could be the first, right? There's always room. And I say, if you were worried about like any kind of some superficial issues, like trust me, the game industry is super nerdy. The biggest thing that I think specifically like ladies have to deal with um, is that it is like a boys club, right? And so that's really hard to avoid when you just have like a population of just mostly dudes. It's going to be weird in that way. You know what I mean? But if you have good skill and you have good merits, you almost always will get in somewhere, right? And I was telling them this, and I was like, what you can focus on is just like, making friends and talking to these events. And then she had some really good work too, and her and her sister like are working on their own projects and stuff. And I was like, well, don't ever give up on that either. Like, make stuff, like do your own things, and don't ever lose that because that's really valuable. And then I was like, you might work and you might start doing industry stuff, like, but just like stay consistent on your own passions too. And then I gave them some advice about like who they can follow, who are like artists of color, because I do know a lot of them, and some of them are my friends. So I showed them many examples for them to get around, because just to help them say, yeah, we exist, man. We were out there, and I can only name um, a few. It's not that many that are in the industry, and so same goes to you, Brittany. Like when you go to this, you want to like go and make friends and just always recognize that you might be a little bit different in the crowd, especially like I said, it's like a boys club. I'm not sure what this artisan con is, so maybe I'm not. Like maybe I'm wrong. Like maybe the opposite. But like everywhere, it's like this, and I think it's slowly changing. But it's a slow turning change. I went to like a panel. It was like um, women in the industry, right? And there was like nobody there except for me and like one other person, right? And I was just like, oh man, this is rough, because I'm not a woman. I was there. The other person was a lady. I think it was still primarily dudes. There was like two other people there, and all of us were men. But I wanted to go because I wanted to hear. Like I like to hear that kind of stuff. I like to hear what people have to say and different perspectives. Makes me smarter. Yeah. And so I would say go to panels, talk to people. If you have business cards, it's always nice, but you know what's better? Getting other people's business cards if you can, or get their information. Like sometimes they might not have business cards, so just get their like website or their email, if they're willing to give it to you. And if you can go to parties, try to go to those parties, man. Make friends. And don't just focus on making friends with like badasses either, because like I think that's another problem. People focus on just making friends with other artists, but only if they're like really good. Like, no, make friends with everybody, because if you don't know, like people get good eventually, right? And if you just make friends genuinely, those people who will eventually get good will remember you, and you will remember them, vice versa. Because you would rather like make friends with somebody that is lower level, but you get along with really well, right? Versus, let's say, like an art director who just treats you like a jerk off, you know? Because even though the art director might give you actual opportunities like almost immediately, especially if you have the work that they're looking for, you would work for this fool, you know what I mean? And you'll hate every day of it. Do you know what I'm saying? So you'd rather just work with people you get along with anyway. Make sense?
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I don't know anything about this console. My only advice is to get feedback and make friends and go to panels.
Anthony, I have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
When did you know you were ready to start teaching? That's something that I'm interested in down the road. I mean, I've taught life drawing a little bit, and I've taught little kids how to draw, but nothing serious. Just I'm interested in your story about that.
It was just all on accident. I had no interest from the start. It was just a natural progression of just like how things go, right? So I like, you know, I'm a accomplished artist. I'm working in an industry, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of my coworkers is like, hey, you know, I'm doing a workshop at my school, and we're always looking for artists to talk. Like, do you want to go and do a talk? Right? And I was like, oh yeah, sure, of course, you know. And then I go, and I destroy, you know. I do a real good job. Mm-hmm. In hindsight, I only did a good job as being like a showman, not so much as a good teacher. Like I think constructively, I don't think I was teaching much. I was just really funny, and then I was just cracking lots of jokes and painting really well, right?
Right.
But I think I wasn't really teaching anything of value. Like it was very much like I was teaching people how to paint, you know. But like I said, some people will take to that and really run with it, but the majority won't, you know?
Yeah.
I learned that later, obviously, as I became better at teaching. You know, like the stuff that I teach you guys is obviously a lot more like stronger than just showing you how to paint. You know, it's not just me just demoing in front of you and then you guys just have to deal with like figuring everything else out on your own. You know, I try to really dissect, and that came with practice and years of teaching other people and seeing what works and what doesn't work. And so like, to get to your point, like, or to your question really is like, I didn't really have it in mind. Right. And then what that did though, was like, it taught me like that I do have a knack for it. Like I have like a natural aptitude to help people out. I always like to do that. I've always liked to help people, and teaching seems like the obvious thing to do. And so then what ended up happening was that I just started doing more workshops. I started teaching more people, you know. And I recognized that what may have made me good at teaching too, like what may have gave me that aptitude, was like when I was a kid, I did a lot of like drama, like acting. I wasn't necessarily good at it, but I was like not afraid of being in front of people. And then I was in a band, so that also compounded that. Like I was always in front of people on stage, you know?
Yeah.
So then like learning all these different disciplines, I've had really good coaches in my life. So I've seen like how other people may have helped me get better, you know? So then what is the defining trait that made me a better teacher? Well, it wasn't that I was a better teacher. It's just I was not afraid to like socialize and interact with people, you know? Sure. And so then when I went to school, I was really one of those people that said like, hey, there's no concept art here, right? There's no concept art courses. There's no concept art teachers, right? There literally was none. There was like a couple painting teachers like Mike Tracy, but he was a background layout artist. He wasn't a concept artist, you know? And Charles Hugh was an amazing life drawing instructor, but he's not a concept artist, you know? It's definitely
right, yeah.
So there literally was no concept art courses except for one, and that one was an elective. It only came for 1 year, right? Anyway, the thing that what happened was that I got really good at like teaching in that regard, because me and my friends would just teach each other. Like we would do concept art weekend, like Friday. We would do Friday night concept art club. And we will just meet up, talk about how to like be concept artists, you know?
Yeah.
And just do it every Friday, like never missing a beat for like 2 or 3 years. And so I got used to not only like, you know, obviously getting in front of people talking, because I did it so many times in the past. I got used to instructing people, helping them out, and just painting stuff, like showing different things that I've learned and how my friends and people who are interested can do it. you know, and then they would do the same thing. And so we all got really good at doing that. That's why when I started like having other instructors, like I would have like Kalen, one of my best friends, do it, because he comes from like the same background of like what we did, you know. So whenever he teaches in a very similar way. He's really good at like helping people out too, like really good, you know.
Yeah.
He might even be better than me in some ways, you know. And so like my point is that like that all just adds up, you know. And then like I started doing the workshops. Then my coworker was like, dude, you're like really good at this. Why don't you teach at the school? So then he got me a job teaching at the school. And then I got approached by Schoolism, which I botched really badly. So it goes back to like me like not learning how to be a good teacher. But I learned a lot from seeing how Bobby runs his school, right? And how like real good teachers should do things. You know, I think even to this day, I still need a thing or two to learn from Bobby. And then, but you know, I ultimately started teaching at other schools, and I started teaching and doing workshops around the world. And then eventually, I just decided to do my own thing, and I love it. I love to do stuff like this. And originally was like I started doing tutorials because I was like, you know, when I first started out, it was like the Gnomon DVDs, but no one could afford them, so we'd always just steal them. And then like, so I was like, you know, what I'll do is I'll just make my tutorials like really cheap. I don't really need to make a lot of money from them. And if it's just me, so it's like I don't really have a lot of overhead. So I was like, yeah, $5 to $3, no problem. And then people were like, what? Anthony Jones has a tutorial for like $5? You know, and they like lost their mind, and it like blew up. And then I was like, you know, maybe I can do like mentorships again. I can keep them relatively affordable, you know?
Yeah.
But it's like personal training, you know, like you just get training directly from me. And then that does really well too. I almost always sell out my classes, and this is like 3 or 4 years in, still the case, you know.
Yeah.
And so it again, just like many of the things that I've taught you already, it's not like I just like got it, now I'm gonna be the greatest teacher. it just like kind of fell onto my lap. Same thing with like concept art, being good at it. Like I didn't recognize that I was good until I was already good, right? Like when I started working at Sony towards the end, I was like, you know what, I think I'm actually a good concept artist. But it was like after I worked there for like a year and a half, you know. And only I realized that because you know, I was like, well, they hired me, and I'm like doing really good, you know, I'm not doing a bad job here, you know.
Yeah.
And but I didn't I thought I was a fraud the whole time. I was constantly like trying to like keep up, at least in my mind I thought I was. But you know, later on, like Cecil was telling me, he's like, no, dude, you're like everyone's trying to keep up to you. And I was like, what? No way. He's like, yeah, dude. He said like Izzy was always like jealous, like how quickly you were working and stuff, and like how your orthographics were really tight. And I was like, what? I only made them tight because I was always like embarrassed to show my shitty stuff to Izzy. it was like a weird, like I was doing it because of like my admiration for this guy. You know, it's so funny that you say that he was like God damn it, this newbie coming in here like wrecking up like our complacency.
So how many years in was this? Like 2 or 3 years into your getting started, or after you got out of school at Sony?
Yeah, so this was probably like 3 to 4 years of me actually trying to be a concept artist. So this is like when I left Sony, I was already like 4 years in. I think that like right around 5 to 6 years, that's as good as I've gotten. Like the work that you see me do now is definitely better than it was, but it's not, it's marginally better. It's only that I've gotten faster.
Right.
Like the best I've ever was like, yeah, like 3 or 4 years ago. And all I've gotten is just faster and faster. So I'm painting like the same kind of like at the same skill level that I was. I'm just like, this like drawing, for instance, would probably take me like a whole day to do, right? And I would be struggling the whole time. But now I'm like, it's like I'm just sketching it during a Q&A, you know, because I've like really like patented down this process, you know? And so, and that's why like I could try to strive to do better and try to get better, but it's like one of those like, but I don't really want to. I like where I'm at, and I'd rather spend that time learning something that could bring more value in a different way, in a different direction, you know.
Sure.
So like that's why I started like learning 3D softwares, or that's why I started learning how to program recently. Now I'm like, okay, maybe I can go even further. Maybe I can get good at art again, but in a different field, like maybe like line drawing and comic book art, you know?
Yeah.
And it just strengthens everything all together. Like everything gets stronger, you know? Like my design sensibilities will get stronger if I'm more graphically thinking, you know?
Right. Yeah.
My programming helps with my art too, because now I'm more organized than I ever was before, you know?
Right.
And my thoughts are more clear, right? Because I'm constantly practicing using my brain. So like when I do art, it's just like I feel like it's like I'm playing with toys, you know, versus when I'm doing programming, like I feel like that's like some real work, you know?
Yeah.
And so again, it just falls into your lap. Like again, someone's probably gonna ask me like, well, when did you decide to become, you know, whatever it is I'm in the future? The same answer will be probably there, right? Like I just kind of just jumped into it. And so yeah, like for you, if you're really interested in becoming a teacher, I would say just start doing it. There's no reason to wait around. Like you might not be as good as, you know, some of the better instructors out there, and you might feel like a fraud by doing it. But think of it like this: like you're just trying to practice how to become a good teacher.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Like it's not about like becoming the best artist and best teacher. It's also just like just being a good teacher. I know plenty of artists who are really good but not really good at teaching it, and I know people who aren't very good at painting but they're really good teachers. You know? And so it's possible to not be nearly as good as you think you should be, and still teach people how to do it, right? Especially if you're honest about your own abilities. Like, for instance, I had teachers who were really kind of like egotistic about like their work, and they weren't really that good, and they were trying to like teach other people. It just makes it way more disingenuous. Where I had teachers who were not really that good, you know, like I can tell that they weren't like the best in their craft, but they were like, they can recognize when someone else is doing good, you know, and they're like, oh shoot, you know, and they can like help them in ways that will help like massage that quality. And I've always admired those teachers a lot, and I've tried to do it with my own teachings. Like I had a student who I felt was like way better than me actually in one of my classes, and I was like, dude, like you shouldn't be taking my class. I should be taking yours. And he's like, no, man, like I really love your work. Like I can learn a lot from you. I was like, I don't know, man. And then and I even like told him, I was like, listen, like seriously, like if you have second thoughts, you could always let me know. I can give you a refund. And I was like, I wasn't really joking either. And he was like laughing. I was like, no, I'm serious. But then he was like, no, seriously, like just give me like, what do you think that I can do that I just don't see, you know? Like I really believe you have value that I can't see it, you know? And I was like, all right, well, let me think, you know? So like, I'm literally like nitpicking. And so I was like, well, you know, I guess the only thing I could say is that your work looks very similar to like all the Massive Black stuff. But I was like, but that's not a bad thing because Massive Black's freaking amazing. You know? So I was like, I don't really know. And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, well, I mean, like it's not like unique, right? Like it's very clearly like a Massive Black style. So you could probably work for them if you keep this up. He's like, well, you know, I'm not really trying to go for that. And it's like, and to be honest, like that's crazy that you recognize that because that's like all I study, you know? And I was like, well, then that's probably why it only looks like that. And I was like, well, maybe my advice then would be is if you want to like stand out, like you need to like study other styles, you know? And he's like, oh shit, you're right. And then I didn't hear from him for like a week. He didn't show up for class like a whole week. And I was like, oh, I guess like he's just like felt like I gave him bad advice. And then he shows up the next week with like really amazing work. And it's like completely new. I've never seen it before, you know? And I'm like, whoa, what the? He's like, yeah, man, I took your advice to heart. So I spent like a whole week just studying all these different artists that I really liked and try to figure out what I liked about them, like you said. And I've just focused in and I was like, dude, this is crazy. And I was like, man, like this is great. Keep doing this then. And he's like, yeah, man, I will. And then right at that time, Six More Vodka was hiring. And I was like, oh, you know, you should apply. And he was like, no, dude, I'm not good enough for those folks. And I was like, bro, you are. What the hell's wrong with you? So I applied for him. I reached out to Marko Djurjevic myself and I said, hey, I have a student who's really good. And he's like, oh yeah, send me his stuff. And I sent it to him. And he's like, oh shit, dude. He's like, all right, just have this guy go through the proper channels because we got to keep this official. But like, he's a shoo-in, man. And I was like, oh, okay, great. And so I told my student that, and he's like, what? Really? And I was like, yeah, man. And I told him too. I was like, listen, I don't even think I can get into 6 more vodka. You know? I was like, seriously, I don't think I could. And he was just like, oh, that means a lot. But like, my point is that like, if I was like, you know, had self-esteem issues or really insecure in my own work, I might have not done that for him, you know? And I know teachers who do that, like will hold their students back and say shit to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So like I said, like if you can recognize that your students are better than you, especially when they actually are, my advice is to just be like, yeah, you're better than me. And then like, this is what you should focus on. This is what I know to be true. This is how we can make you even better than me. So I can never catch up, you know? And I think that makes a good teacher in general, regardless of your skill level. Just recognizing people's value and then trying to get them through it. So
good advice. Good advice. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you want to get started, I don't think that's a problem. I think you can kind of get going, man. Seriously.
Thanks.
Around. Like get some practice in. All right. I'm going to end the class here, folks. All right. I believe in you guys. Spend the next week and a half pushing yourself to the hardest abilities you've ever done. And I'm looking forward to you guys' work. I believe in y'all. Like stay in touch with one another. Maybe like do like Google Hangouts, do all this kind of stuff. And the next thing you know, you might be killer. Oh yeah, the most popular art teacher on YouTube is Jazza, and he's not great. Max, take it easy, man. No, I get what you're saying though, right? He's like very clearly like has a very specific style to his work. And I think even in that realm, objectively speaking, I think you're still right. Like he's probably not a premier artist in that style and that aesthetic. But he is a great instructor. There's no doubt. Like I watch his videos too. I learn a thing or two, you know? So I think you're not wrong. But that's exactly right. So cool. Peace out, friends. Talk to you guys soon enough. Laters. Thank you for watching this video. I appreciate it. Please subscribe to watch more in the future. If you liked the video, I would appreciate a thumbs up. If you like this content, you can go to my website, robotpencil.net, where you can find mentorships, tutorials, and a Patreon to get more exclusive content. Thanks again, and I'll see you guys in my next videos.